Modern aircraft such as Air Force One and Marine One are essential to the President of the United States' mobility and safety. These flying fortresses, outfitted with cutting-edge communications and defense systems, guarantee that the President can continue to lead the country even in the face of grave dangers. The President will be protected by Air Force One, which is built to stay in the air during the most dire situations. But if something goes wrong, what covert processes and protocols are in place? Compared to earlier times, the current threats are far more severe. Air Force One has several military technologies and safety features, such as infrared missile and radar jamming technology, top-secret anti-nuclear defenses, and in-flight refueling capability to fend off potential attacks, though specifics are classified. The Air Force is reluctant to discuss specific security measures on Air Force One. In reality, the engines are countermeasures made to launch chaff into the air. Additionally, missiles that seek heat would be redirected away from the aircraft. The aircraft has an electromagnetic skin to protect against impulses in the event of a nuclear attack. W. Ralph Basham, the captain of Air Force One, bears ultimate responsibility for that aircraft if it is threatened, as is the President's safety and security. Additionally, he decides what those aircraft should or shouldn't do. Additionally, he is the only person on that aircraft aware of its capabilities. When President George W. Bush was being transported from Florida on September 11, 2001, following the attacks in New York and Washington, D.C., Air Force One was both a moving target and a haven. Brian Montgomery, we took off. It was probably the fastest Air Force One takeoff I'd ever been on. However, a Continental Airlines aircraft was not responding in our area, so we had to go in the other direction. Alan Lichtman, the pilot, Officer Tillman, received a message indicating that an unidentified aircraft might be pursuing Air Force One and that the terrorist might target Angel, as they called it, next. People may not be aware that on that day, the White House received a call saying, "Angel is next." Angel is the code word for Air Force One. Air Force One is designed to operate with various contingency plans, including one for nuclear war, but not for that kind of chaos. Since no one knew what would happen or who the next target might be, the pilot took evasive action and called in jet fighters. The threat turned out to be a false alarm. However, it exposed hidden flaws in Air Force One's capabilities. Although Air Force One seems to have defenses, it is incapable of offensive action. They need fighter escorts because it doesn't shoot down other planes. Kenneth Walsh people ask how frequently Air Force One is escorted by fighter jets, and the answer is that it rarely happens. Very seldom, as it disrupts commercial traffic and poses a safety risk. As they need to make room in the sky for Air Force One, the swath must then be cleared for the fighter plane's approaches. To be with Air Force One, the Air Force has decided they could scramble jets at the last minute. As a result, the Air Force is always aware of the exact destination of Air Force One. Pilots are, therefore, vigilant. Following the terrorist attacks of 2001, emergency procedures were activated, enabling President Bush to be safely transported by Air Force One to a covert location in Nebraska. Why Nebraska? Since the Strategic Air Command's headquarters are located there. Brian Montgomery. Just outside Omaha, Nebraska, we visited Offutt Air Force Base. We arrived at this enormous structure, which I remember was 3 or 4 stories high. However, a concrete bunker was across the street from the building rather than entering it. That's where we entered. At that point, I'll have to stop talking. Narrator. To improve the military aircraft's communication capabilities, President Bush ordered significant changes to Air Force One following the events of September 11th. A week after that day, President Bush instructed the Air Force to install live television and find a way to connect the aircraft to the internet so that he could hold live meetings with his ground-based staff. Experiment 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. How do you copy now? Greg Kahan. Additionally, that was the forerunner of all the internet available on airlines today. Narrator. Marine One, the presidential helicopter, is the first vehicle called to action in the event of a national emergency, and the commander-in-chief is attacked in the White House, even though Air Force One is the best aircraft for presidential transport. It is believed that the Sea King has anti-missile defenses and ballistic armor. Fred Geyer. Is it possible for the Marine One aircraft to attack or defend itself? To put it plainly, Some secrets just have to stay that way. Narrator. Emergency evacuation procedures are practiced for those in charge of transporting the president. Michael Bone. I know from experience that I was the president's stand-in during one drill, and down there, it was the high point of my career. Suppose nuclear weapons are headed for Washington, D.C. In that case, the plan is to evacuate the president as quickly as possible to a location where he can remain safe and continue to lead the government. And that is precisely what the Continuity of Government, or COG, program is intended to accomplish. I, therefore, took on the role of president once during a continuity of government exercise. I boarded the presidential helicopter to get to a secret location in the mountains close to Camp David. Narrator. A helicopter was added to the fleet so the president could quickly escape. When the commander-in-chief is aboard, the aircraft is flown under the call sign Marine One. Around 1957, Marine One was established. What if you were the president and needed to get somewhere fast, faster than a car, but couldn't really start a large presidential plane? That was the reason. The helicopter was the best solution. Furthermore, Marine One never flies by itself. It is constantly accompanied by other decoy helicopters. The art of protecting presidents includes deceit. Narrator. President Obama's Sea King is almost 200 square feet in interior space, in contrast to the small helicopters that his predecessors used. The luxurious cabin can accommodate 14 people and has a bathroom and a small office area. Marine One can also accommodate the communications apparatus needed to maintain constant communication between the President, the White House, and the Pentagon. Fred Geyer. However, all White House communications are comparable. We can communicate with them all. Despite the cabin's excellent comfort and roominess, there aren't many amenities aboard, so everything depends on the mission. Additionally, they might bring extra medical equipment on certain flights to specific locations. Narrator. In the event of an emergency, Marine One is equipped with several advanced security features, such as the most up-to-date military-grade laser detector and radar warning systems, a reinforced aluminum alloy fuselage that can withstand high-speed crash impacts, and the ability to continue flying even if one of its 3 engines fails. As part of the military protocol for presidential helicopter flights, a Marine is designated to meet the president wherever he lands. When President Bill Clinton arrived at dawn on a trip to a remote region of the Grand Canyon, he found a single Marine standing at attention, prepared to serve his commander-in-chief. Clinton was truly taken aback to see a Marine standing in such a remote location. He had no idea why. He will greet him appropriately when the president emerges. Subsequently, he stays with that aircraft, offering its security. Narrator. Marine. The helicopter is flown abroad on all of the president's trips, demonstrating how important one is to the office. Because the aircraft must be flown to an Air Force base, disassembled, flown to the overseas location, assembled and prepared for the presidential mission, overseas operations are significantly more challenging. Narrator. However, the president travels in more than just Marine One. He also pilots the Beast, a heavily armored limousine.